Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Research Roadshow. It's Friday. It's time for Protecting the Nest. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Hi, John. And everybody. Hello. Yeah, another Friday. Lots of stuff going on. Tons of stuff.
A lot going on.
And Fridays come by really fast now.
Mhm.
And time does feel like it's speeding up. Oh, except when you've got a lot of chores. Then it slows way down. When you're cleaning, it's like it just stopped and time never ceases. Oh, the baseboards.
Well, you have the advantage of one of your chores is cleaning out the chicken coop, right?
Oh, we love our chickens. Look, just the joy of watching the rooster protect his women. And Cluck Norris, that's his name. Cluck Norris is very protective. He will hide in Japanese maple in the little bend. And if you're not looking for him, he'll jump down and look at you like, what are you here for? You can talk to me before you go to my women. And then, but they're very much attached to us now. And they love when we pull some of the weeds and just toss it in the pen if we're not going to let them walk around in their chicken run. And they make really great noises in order to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and then they'll just kind of stare at us. But we have 4 little kittens that popped up from under the shed. So every time we go back there, it's like we're seeing Farmer John, because the neighbors right beside us, they have 2 dogs. So the chicken coop backs up to that. So the dogs are really sweet. They poke their head through to see the chickens. Then you see the little kittens, and then you see the rooster and the chickens. And birds are everywhere, and it's like, oh, Farmer John, here we go.
My dog likes my chickens way too much, and the chickens, it distresses them. But I did get the coop finished. I worked with my grandson, and we put it together. And now the chickens are finally out of the house, which was getting really disgusting. Although the noise was wonderful, and my daughter loved their little peepees, and she's just adores the chickens. We can't have a rooster in the town, though. We have to just have.
Oh, you know when they say roosters only crow at the crack of, that's not true. They do their rooster call all day, all throughout the day. Anytime they hear a noise, if there's like a block party going on, he will.
That's why we can't have them. None allowed unless you get people, all your neighbors within 200 miles to say it's okay.
All our neighbors have chickens, or the ones who gave them to my son for his birthday have chickens, and they have roosters. And then the other ones get the eggs from that neighbor who has chicken and roosters, and then the other ones want chickens, so they're excited. So we're lucky about that, because I had no idea how much they actually all the time.
Yep, that they're in the noise ordinance. So we don't want to get a rooster to get arrested and taken into jail.
I just feel bad, like all those people who do the cockfighting. That's awful. Yeah. I mean, these guys are protecting. They're being protective. Yeah, they're aggressive, but it's for a good reason. It's to protect their chickens.
Well, yeah, the cockfighting, I think they did used to do that here. Maybe they still do. I don't know, but I think it is a horrific thing. It's the opposite of chickens having eggs and collecting the eggs, and it's very much opposite. Just in terms of what's happening. But the noises are quite lovely. That just the little cluck, 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 cluck. It's really calming and
it is calming. It's very delightful. Calming.
Yeah.
Plus, it takes us back to nature a little bit. It's been a long while that I haven't gone for a good hike. I miss very much hiking in the Alps, where you can get away from the noise and the traffic and everything, and hearing the rooster now and again, it takes you back a little bit.
It is like the farmers. Well, you wanted to talk about hummingbirds, John. Mine hummingbirds have moved over to the neighbor's giant big rhododendron bush, which is probably 30 feet high. It's just gigantic, and it probably has a lot of hummers in there. But we haven't seen our hummingbird lately, and the nest turned into the weaver's nest, which is probably about to hatch. It's got babies and eggs and stuff going on in there. But what did you want to talk about the robot hummers? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Well, I was looking for a video. I'm looking for a video shot at MIT around 2012 that they had a small robotic hummingbird that they were experimenting with, and it did okay hovering in front of a feeder, but only with no wind and with laboratory conditions. As soon as let me see if I can find it. As soon as they introduced a little bit of wind, the algorithms went haywire and the bird was all over the place. He could not, stay within a 4 centimeter circular error probable. Now, this is a bird, and not the robot. The real bird has a pretty small brain compared to humans. And yet he's able to, no matter how windy it gets, he's able to maintain spot on at a certain point at that feeder. And here we have a much, much larger brain. And it appears, at least in Europe, like we're not using it. And
well, that's because, John, and I think of this video that I got on the Huna prayer that you brought last week. There's more on that, but the part of the brain that is the part that hooks into the infinite part, which is the quantum computing time to infinite, is your subconscious, is not your conscious brain. So the algorithms are never going to solve all the problems ever, ever, ever.
Agreed.
John, if you're talking about MIT birds, let me tell you, this is how the disinformation stuff started. So it's in order to distract from what's going on. We know that there's robotic birds. And so instead of us knowing there's real birds and then there's robotic birds, they've got subgroups all over social media where people are actually discussing that they don't think birds are real. And so they do that on purpose in order to keep people from seeing, yeah, birds are real, but you can also fake birds too. Both things can be true at once. And so that's a way to keep people from looking into it because people think it's crazy. And then the people who are saying all birds are fake, they get all this information from MIT and they say, here's our proof. And then other people go outside and go, they just laid an egg. I'm seeing baby birds. What are you talking about? And so then it causes division. And so instead of people understanding that giving a partial truth or over exaggerating an actual truth is what's causing people not to be able to follow the tea leaves. And that's so frustrating.
That's an excellent point, how that happens.
You're on mute, John.
How that division just divides people over the stupidest things. And they get so crazy. And the whole flat earth thing went on for a long time, just on and on and on. And
that's because there was a bunch written about the firmament, which is a thing. And it was written about the atmosphere and how it's shaped, which is a thing. And then when they described it, as you're standing on a flat land, but above you is like and then so instead of people understanding what that meant going right underneath space travel, right above, and what they were talking about, in order to keep people stupid, it's either that everything's flat, we're in a bubble, you can't get out of it, space doesn't exist, or we're on a completely flat earth, or the earth is circle and we're all going to flip over in 5 seconds. I mean, it just, the ridiculousness about people just not reading, but that's what's sad about people manipulating textbooks and doing manipulation tactics and using agendas in order to reframe. Like now they're calling math racist. I mean, these are the things they do in order to keep people stupid because they don't want people to be able to succeed, and they need a very large lower class is what it's looking like. That's what they're trying to obtain, to where they're happy to be slaves. That's what
and the divisions of tribalism too. I mean, that's definitely a push, and we've studied that with the Phoenix program. We've seen how it's happened over many generations now. Probably hundreds of years. It goes way back. The divide and conquer. You get people fighting themselves, weakening each other. the Sword and the Shield program. It just it's never ending. We see it.
Well, that's back in the '60s, Carol. There was the division, and we knew that they were trying to divide us all in every country along lines of age, sex, political
religion,
strife. The whole
politics.
works.
Mhm.
The difference now is, and we're seeing this in Italy on Facebook and Twitter. The difference is that the techniques that they're using to keep us divided and to fight like cats and dogs are much more sophisticated. And that's why the AI is so important to this discussion. And it's very, very difficult to meet somebody halfway on a given argument, because then all the other arguments, global warming and the chemtrails and everything else, comes into the play. Even flat Earth comes into the play. So that's where I think Protecting the Nest has a job to do in helping people disentangle these various arguments.
Yeah, let me tell you something I'm noticing everywhere I look. You turn on, you're watching Congress, wherever you are, there's only one or two people, and they'll do the same thing, and it's continuous. A topic is started. People start to dive into that particular topic. They're pulling out all the different threads and trying to narrow the path in order to find a focal point. And someone will all of a sudden say, instead of us focusing on this, we need to understand that we're supposed to be focusing on this path over here, which is exactly what was being focused on. But then it throws everybody off. And if you've got a bunch of people pleasers and people can't spot it, they end up going and restarting the conversation only to end up right where they were 30 minutes before, because they just rounded right back to where they were, because that's essentially where the conversation was going to take them. And so it becomes a big circle. Mm-hmm. And so I've started becoming very obstinate when people are talking, and it started at the very crux of that conversation. And then as it went, all of these things that were thrown away that we know, disinformation, misinformation, and it's been narrowed, and someone says, we've gotten off topic. No, we haven't. This is how we got on this topic. Like, it's here, and we got here. And I see it everywhere. When I went to volunteer at the kids' school, I actually saw it happen in their music class. They were on the actual piece of music. They were going through the piece of music, and they got through the third stanza, and were told, we've got to focus on the music. And then somehow all the kids said, okay, we got off topic. Like we weren't paying attention. And they went right back to the exact same thing, but they believed that they were reset in a particular way, that they needed to be reset when nothing needed to be reset. Maybe practiced, maybe gone over again, maybe gone through and then revised on a particular area. But it's this word verbiage. Some people are just addicted to it, and they copy it, and they don't know they're doing what dismantlers do. And so they just think it's an intelligent way to do it. And some people do it purposefully, but it is amazing watching it all play out. And that's what we see on the news. Distraction, distraction. Look over here. And everyone gets narrowed in. We know this is what's happening. And then squirrel. Now we got to get back on topic. It's like, where were we? Okay. And then you start over. It's ridiculous.
Well, the prayer you brought up last week, the Huna prayer, has an incredible way to address that and how to give people tools to come back together. And I did a little digging around, because I had been studying this guy whose name is Dr. Haleakala Hugh Lin is his name. And when my daughter was having a lot of problems with drugs and running away and all this stuff, she's a Native American. So I wanted to find a way to address, what was going on in a deeper level with her. And the only thing I could find was Huna, that was being practiced currently, and had people that were willing to work with people. And so when she was 15 and just out of drug treatment, I sent her to Hawaii on a program with a woman that had studied this. So I learned quite a bit about him, and and the principles. So I'll just give you a little bit more on his background with the Hospital of the Criminally Insane. That was in the not the Big Island, but the island of Hawaii, the old island. And what he was doing when he would look at the charts and just hold them, he would get the chart of the patient and read it. And as he was reading it, he'd be feeling things like being upset, frustrated, angry, embarrassed. He would see all these horrible things in the charts. What had happened, the fire wrecked the family, all these awful, divisive, terrible, traumatic things had happened. And he'd be enraged, depending on what he read. And so then he cleared his own feelings within himself, that he was feeling those feelings as he held it. So he didn't try to clean the patient from what had happened. He tried to clean his reactions. And that was the work he did, and how eventually all the people in that hospital, after a few years of him just sitting there doing that, they healed. And they all were released, and the people liked coming to work. So anyway, let's see what he has to say about what he did and how he did it. But he does speak very quietly, so you have to turn it up and listen carefully.
How do you pronounce the name? Ihalekeia?
Ahaliakala Hulen, Dr. I think Ahaliakala. The guy pronounces it, and he said he had to practice and practice, his interviewer, who's Australian.
With Hulen and me. It took a little practice before.
Let me start that off.
With
Hulen.
It took a little practice before I could get that first name right. But let me welcome to this interview.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
There's a lot of interference, John, sadly.
Little.
John, take us off the screen so it can only be that, because that might be the issue.
A group of people in that were healed of all that ailed them, all at once, without you even visiting them, and yet it was your influence that created that result.
It's only about being 100% responsible. The question is, what is going on in me that I'm experiencing whatever, and being responsible for it. And so if I had the experience of being present where I experienced somebody being ill, what's going on in me that I can let that go? And in letting it go in me, I left them and I go home.
And yet that is an amazing thing to do. That is it's been said by many. It's been said by avatars throughout history that we are all capable of that. And yet attaining that seems something that most of us miss on a day-by-day basis.
It's very easy. It only requires you being 100% responsible. It requires you to be willing to know that any problem that you experience is in you, and more specifically in the subconscious, and most specifically what Shakespeare called it's a for bemoan moan grievances for gone, and it's just a memory plan. So if I erase it in me, I'll erase it in everything around me. And if I do that, if I come in peace, everybody else and everything else will be peaceful. But if peace begins with me.
There's a lot of people who are saying similar things at the moment about the first healing that needs to happen is in ourselves, and then all the problems of the world will go away. Is that something you ascribe to?
The healing thing is kind of something I don't usually say. It's more like problem solving. What is going on in what is I'm experiencing as a problem in me, and if I'm willing to be 100% responsible, then there's a process called erased. The memory can be erased, taking it back to zero, taking it back to nothing, what Shakespeare calls blank. And once I'm there, then inspiration comes through me, inspiration comes through everything else.
Is that God?
What is God?
Well, that's an enormous question, but I get to ask the questions.
I think it's love.
Love. many would describe that as God.
Let them do that. I'm just going to describe it as love.
And as I say, many avatars have said similar things, but you're saying now it's a simple thing.
Yeah.
So is this something that I or anyone can put into practice? The Ho'oponopono is a specific set of things that people can put into practice in order.
Well, not so much a specific set of things, but one has to be 100% responsible. One has to say, hey, something's going on. That's not I'm in the presence of a schizophrenic person. That person's a wholly, complete, perfect already. What's going on in me that I see that imperfection? And it's a data replaying. The whole universe is run by data. So the data is me is saying that there's something wrong with the person, when actually the data is in me, and I get to make amends for that. And it's called problem solving. I can ask the I am or love in me to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and have it erased.
So when you call it problem solving, is that also to do with the baseball cap that says, don't take me too seriously, don't think I'm too smart, I'm just another person?
I'm a person here on this earth, and my only purpose for being here on this earth is to make amends for these errors. I'm not here to do anything else. I'm only here to say, oh, if I see Mary Curler there and there's something about her I don't like, I know it's a memory in me, and I need to take responsibility.
Does this step out to such a thing as there was a man who killed a lot of people in Tasmania several years ago, a man called Martin Bryant, and he went mad as far as we could tell, shot a lot of people, and is now in prison and supposedly not recovering particularly well. Taking 100% responsibility would say that I am responsible for that.
No, I'm responsible for the memory of that. I'm responsible for the data in me. So if he were assigned to me, which I'm not here to do any of that, but if he were a part of my caseload, then I would ask myself, what's going on in me that he is in my presence? What's going on in me that I'm experiencing him, and I can let that go. And if I let that go, he'll be fine. But the idea is that prisons won't do any of that sort of stuff. Psychiatric treatment, massage therapists, because ultimately, like I'm talking to you, before I talk to you, I've been working on my whatever ties I have with you. What's going on in me that I have ties with my relatives and ancestors, with this tree, with the land. I'm only here to make amends. That's my purpose for existence. Something I need to take care of. So I'm only here in this existence to erase the data in me that I see as problems.
When I saw that about healers, that essentially they're people who've created more problems in the past, and so they're back to be paid for healing this time.
Well, could be. They're not here to get paid. I'm here to be free. So I can get to the point where I'm memory free, and what happens to me, I get inspired, and everything around throughout the whole cosmos gets inspired. They get their own information, and they get their own ability to solve problems. But it begins with me.
It's a beautiful concept.
It works too.
That's good.
Yeah, and it's easy to do. For example, as I'm sitting here, I'm saying to myself mentally, I love you. So Jesus said, love your enemy. So my only enemy are what Shakespeare called the rebel powers in me, which are memories replaying, and I get to fall in love with you. Like with you, I get to call whatever connection ties that you have shown up in my life that I need to make amends for. I'm willing to do that. Yeah.
Do we have any that are obvious?
What happened is that most people don't realize that the conscious mind is only aware of 15 to 14 bits of information, but the subconscious 11 million per second. So we're clueless. We have no idea. There's nobody on the earth that knows anything. We're all clueless. So we're only here to erase. And since there's a part of us already knows what the problem is,
Will you know me a little of what Ho'oponopono is?
Yeah. So for me, before seeing you, before coming here, I would say to myself, what data, what memories are going in me that I'm here? What is it I need to make amends for? And I simply say to the data, I love you, thank you. So there are varieties of ways to begin the problem-solving process. But it's about love, appealing to love to erase the data in me that I experience as problems. I love you. Thank you. Ginger snaps. Yeah, that's all I brought some. Going to,
We're going to share ginger snaps.
yeah, you know, it's very simple to do, and so um, this is the nice thing about this is that the idea is to come as a little child, so to be open to whatever comes up as a way of cleaning. So this is a cleaning process. I'm gonna let you open it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the process is about loving your enemies. And your enemies are only your memories in you. And so please, yeah. And so this is about problem solving. So it's about my taking 100% responsibility, and all I have to do is eat it. It's easy to do. Watch me. That's it.
So you're eating the problem.
No, I'm eating the information that will release the problem. I'm eating love. This is love I'm eating. I'm saying to love, I'm sorry for whatever.
Then I'm going to have some too.
Okay, I'm sorry for whatever's going on in me, and love is the only thing that can transform.
I love this guy. I really, really like that guy. I'm gonna learn his name, and I'm gonna learn more about him.
You're on mute, Carol.
Yeah, he talks real softly, but there are more videos and interviews and stuff. There's quite a bit of people that have tried to interpret his stuff, but the way he interprets it and the words he uses are really unique. You know, I think it's the idea of taking ultimate responsibility is, I think it's kind of a hard one. And the idea of separating people is it's your fault, you know, is blaming. That's the divisive thing. And so when you're saying, you know, the thing that is upsetting me is the problem, that's what the way to release it. It's a wonderful way to turn that on its head, and I think it will change all the division that we're seeing if we can start to practice it. But it's pretty obscure.
Yeah, what's hard, Carol, and this actually makes total sense, because if we were living without the trauma bond that's been going on and without the pandemic, this guy would be a miracle worker. And right now, what they've done is made it so much more difficult to heal from just the realities of life and just misunderstandings and the regular things we deal with in order to have relationships, friendships, families, loved ones, neighbors, which is difficult in itself, which is where his words of wisdom come in. But when you have an active attack going on where the people that you want to share the cookie with or do whatever, they want you to shut up and not ask any questions because you don't get an opinion. And that's what's going to be hard about helping people get through the trauma bonding.
Yeah.
And help
the coolest thing, though, was that he did it remotely. He didn't do it really with conversation. He did it by just doing the internal work in his office. And so it's a way to avoid that conflict and deal on the subconscious level, which is where all the information is, you know,
yes, and I can
go down into that level.
Then maybe how we do it is for those people who are taken advantage of, or those people that we were divided from, who had no control over situation. That's who we do this prayer for. But the people who are actively doing this, I'm not wasting my time when they need to go down, when they need to be stopped. So it's kind of like there's all these people that are infighting, but not because we should all be infighting. It's because these few people that really need to have that attention brought on them are the ones that we need to reserve, that looking for who's culpable, who's going to try to do it again, who's misleading, who's being deceiving, so that we can nurture and put our energy into this group of people who need to come together in order to face that darkness that wants us to succumb and just sit down and take it. That's the difficult part, is discerning who needs to be lifted up and who needs to not be given a platform because they're taking advantage and abusing people with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but he was dealing with criminal psychopaths.
Yeah, I can't do that.
caseload.
I can't do that. People are dying from fast cancer every day. I can't do that. It's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse, it's get rid of the people that are the scourge that are doing this, and then heal everybody from the suffering.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are the minions, and they don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah, help the minions not be minions. That's great. I'm okay with that. But allowing this genocide that's happening and just forgiving the psychopaths doing it, well, I'll forgive them once they have no power to do it again. But
This
as
is
they're
a way to
actively
take-
pursuing
I
it,
think that what he's saying is this is a way to that power is dissolved, because once the problems are dissolved, the power is dissolved too. I mean, I think that's what he's saying. I think
you're gonna
that
have
he's
to help
worth
me then,
studying.
Carol. You're
What?
gonna have to help me. You're gonna have to lead
Mhm.
that prayer circle, because you don't want me in it right now, because I'll be.
Oh, well, I do. I do. We all
Because
need
I
all
will
the prayer
be
circles we can find
getting
right
so
now.
mad. Like I've got to get rid of.
No,
the,
but your anger is okay, Amber, and it's very healthy and it's cleansing. I mean, he's not saying not to have emotions. He's saying to figure out where they're coming from. So
Okay.
I think having them is what the clue is, that something's really wrong that has
You're
to be
supposed to
dealt
have
with.
them. Yeah.
So you are supposed to have them. He's not saying just sit there and
with the
own.
words of prayer coming out of my mouth right now.
Right. Well,
Hey,
it
where
is
are
a
those?
prayer. What's coming out of your mouth is a prayer. It's saying, enough of this. This is going in the wrong way.
Then my prayer needs to be surrounded by a drum circle, hitting hard with the same beat. Stop. Stop. To just those very people that are doing the bad thing.
Oh, look who's here.
Hello.
Yay. Hi, Tara.
Hey guys.
Tara.
Hi. So who were you guys just talking about when you said he?
Well, let's see if we can pronounce him. Dr. Iliakala Hugh Len. And he
does the the Pua Pua prayer.
Yeah, that was from last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
the guy that released all of the criminally insane from the criminally insane hospital by sitting in his room, holding their files and saying that prayer. But also he explained more on this video, so you can go back and look at it if you haven't seen it yet today. But he talks about what
It's
he
really
does.
great.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So how
I
did
think
beautiful.
everybody has someone in their extended family that's been to prison, say, and the former convict is really suffering, and he probably has a lot of pent up anger, and it's very hard for each of us. It's hard for everyone else in his family to forgive him for the things that he did, but this guy explains how you begin the process of forgiving, of reintegrating that person into the conversation and making them more productive, because we cannot fight the deep state unless we can get each of those people in our extended family, in our neighborhood that have anger or have some baggage with them, to also participate in the group. This is an all hands on deck situation.
Yeah, well, there's also I think this is a great thing to do, but I'm kind of like a tiger, not a communist tiger. What I mean is like the actual tiger. And what I mean is once I see that something needs to be done, I will sit silent and then take it out. And because it is harming others. So I'm not someone who's like, this thing is harming me, but not anybody else. I'll deal with that. for a very long time and figure out a way in which I can maneuver without bringing that into anyone else's scope.
Mm-hmm.
But if I see it being in everyone else's scope and I too am dealing with it and everyone is at a loss, I will pounce. I will pounce either quietly, unsuspectedly, but I will actively allow for everyone to be able to release by being and participating in the thing that will stop the horrible thing, right? So then that gives everyone else that power to pray and forgive. I'll get there, but first, that thing destroying needs to be stopped.
Yeah,
There
well,
has to be that balance, and
he's
I
talking
cannot.
about
Yeah.
taking ultimate responsibility, which is what the tiger does. It takes ultimate responsibility, and he's talking about taking ultimate responsibility into his own self and his own reactions to who's schizophrenic, who's whatever. And by doing that, it heals them. They stop
Yes.
being that because he stopped seeing them as that, and it undoes those bonds, I think.
Yeah, the trauma
of
bonds.
division of
Yeah, the trauma bonds that are
Yeah.
happening. But like there's the so I see so much goodness in people that are being tortured and scarred and confused and divided.
right.
And I don't have time to have like, what do you call it? Like sympathy where you're pitying.
Mhm.
I'm looking at what they're frightened of. I'm looking for what is making them flinch. I'm looking for the cause and effect that's affecting their personal life with their loved ones. And no one can really speak of it. So they're all blaming one another because they can't find the hidden enemy. And then I'm like, wait a minute, you guys do what you need to do. I'm looking for the hidden enemy. I'll be with you in a second. And I try to be pleasant. And then I go and I look for the hidden enemy because my bigger issue is, why put that burden on people that are already burdened when I know the burden? And yet I want to stop the catalyst. I want to go and find the catalyst and address that catalyst either one-on-one or however needed at that moment. But I don't want to collectively try to do it with other people because other people have different means to do it. And some people are so trauma bonded that they'll allow it to keep going forever. And I want to cut it off at the source, cut it off, split the Gordian knot, be done, right? And then heal everybody who did not deserve that trauma. And so I love the kindness, the love, the tenderness. And I want people to stay that way. So they sometimes can't go after that Gordian knot, take the sword and slice it in half because their heart is too good and loving. So is mine, but somebody's got to do it. And that's what I mean by being a tiger instead of a balance. Like, yeah, you need balance, but at some point it's so out of whack. You got to cut it off at the head, like done. And now the beauty in everyone reveals itself. And then everyone forgives each other for the horrible things they said and did and participated in or allowed. And that's the beautiful thing. That's when, I can actually relax because it's like knowing my kids are having a difficult time and my family is, but there's a predator on the property. Everyone else might be like mad at each other because they don't know the predator stressing them out. I'm going to be looking for the damn predator. And I'm going to make sure nobody has to deal with the predator. And that's who I am. And so I'm very nice and like kind and loving to people that are trying, but they're lost. And I'm super patient. I want them to be who they are. I never want them to give up that tenderness, that loving, that peace, that meekness, because it's beautiful. And when you force people that are meek and healers to have to do dirty work, they changes them forever. And now it's hard to go back to heal, right? And I can move back and forth like that, but we need those healers. We need those empaths. We need those meek people in order to keep a balance. And so when I see that they feel it necessary to get up and have to be aggressive or push back, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't want this to change the trajectory of your life and who you're created to be. Hang on. Let me just pull out the tiger right now because let me handle this. And then let's go back to being sweet and nice. So, it's so hard to watch because there's so many beautiful people and I want them to stay that way. And anytime I see that something is yanking them out of how they were created to be, which is to keep the balance and keep light and actual love and peace in this world, I don't want them to change. I don't want the trajectory of the world to take them from what they were created to be. So that's why I get like, I want you to do the prayer and I will jump in, but there's a predator on the loose. And I'll jump into the prayer with you guys once the predator is gone, and I will pray and dance and sing and grab the drum and we'll have a blast. But I just don't want the predator impeding on people's lives more than it already has.
And everything you're saying, Amber, just reminds me that this is a spiritual battle, and you're just describing it perfectly, because it's like you can't, at this time anyway, you can't take the battle part out. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, the goodness, the goal, the core of it all, but it's like literally like having your armor on, being out, you know, and being like, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to get the water? Okay, try this way, maybe not, you know, and it's like people that are in the arena of like saving souls. That's right in there too, because it's like you, just like you talk about with your kids, you know, different people require different methods and not everything works for everyone. So it's the same thing on a spiritual sense. And, you know, we can all feel that if you are able to take on a healer role, then you have to keep the parenting angle. So, which means that you will be fierce and kind at the same time. And, you know, and there's always room for like, just, okay, that didn't work. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
So really, I want to know a little bit more about what this prayer is, but I think that the energy you're bringing of the like attack mode is completely fitting.
Well, Carol,
mama
I look
bear.
at her as the medic, but the smart medic who's like, we know this is going to happen, and we're going to need this tool, this tool, this tool. But the medic is far away from the battlefield. You can't have the battlefield on top of the people being healed. So Carol's like over here, and she has all the information of what this causes and what needs to be healed and what this happened and how we do this and how we fix this and how we get them, reset them, and set them straight. And I see you as someone who goes and grabs the people who are on the field and pulls them in to Carol. And then John is disseminating it, but somebody's got to be on the battlefield holding back someone
I
from
think
being
Hugh Len,
going
Dr.
towards the
Hugh
medic.
Len is a peaceful warrior, and he's very effective as a warrior, but he does the battle internally instead of externally. And
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, well, that's what
I
he's
have no
trying
idea.
to teach.
No, I think you do, Amber. You do it.
Yeah. And what he's talking about is really, you know, there's the information on the surface that we react to, and that our brains can only hold, what did he say, 13 or 14 things at any one time. But that when you can access your subconscious, then you have access to all of it, you know, all the history and all the future and everything that's ever happened. And you can act instantaneously, appropriately, because you have access. So I think that's
I need to work on that.
part of his method. What?
Yeah, I probably need to. I'll watch that video a couple more times.
Well, the other video, that was part one, and part two, he goes into how what he's looking for is actual ultimate freedom, and that's his method of getting that, and that freedom and peace are the same thing. Anyway, he goes into more of that. It's very interesting, you know, how he thinks about it, and it is sort of surprising, but what he did was incredibly effective, you know, to heal psychopathic criminals that were you know, murderers.
What's most difficult is when you see people struggling internally, but you're not supposed to see it, but you do see it, and you don't want them to know you see it. So you want to help without you debilitating them more, because it'll make them hide it more, and it'll make them push it down more. So you have to find the exact words to actually help them, so that it empowers themselves, so they know this is just today. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Today is tough. Tomorrow might be tougher, but hey, you live through today. And guess what? These are the great things about you. And there's plenty of people who are here for you. So it's hard to particularly find at the right moment, the right linguistics, because you can see the pain. Sometimes it would be great to be blissfully ignorant and not see when people are going through pain, because that's very difficult to know, oh gosh, because you want to be a friend, you want to be kind, you want to reach
Well,
out.
a lot of the pain, I think, comes from the cognitive dissonance, and that you have to disassociate yourself from yourself to be able to hold these things that are completely opposite, that don't make sense in your head. And so this coming together on that level is what's so important, because, in this mass situation where the mass media has hypnotized most of the people, it's not just one-on-one anymore. We're dealing with this giant issue, deep problem.
Well, one thing I've noticed that is very interesting, men and women are totally different. And men have been taught, don't show your stress. And so the stress comes out in weird ways, like they forget something, or they're not paying attention, or they seem distant. And it shows weakness if they say what they're stressed out about. Where a woman then, wants to share the weakness in order to build up. And so the woman is like, oh my gosh. And I see it all the time. Men are kind of absent, but not because they're absent, but because they've got the stress on their mind that they won't admit to having. So they come off strong, all put together, but internally it's showing with just basically walking, from the house to your car, forgetting your keys and not wanting to admit, I've got a lot on my mind, I'm stressed out. And then wanting to pretend, oh, well, it's not a big deal. And the woman's like, it's okay, you can say this. So I'm seeing this dichotomy play out with the sexes. And I think they know, or the people who are setting up this trauma bond know, that there are great differences between men and women, but they need each other. And so they're taking advantage of this moment in order to debilitate relationships between men and women and pushing transhumanism at the exact same time, which is why they're pushing the trans agenda in order to placate towards us while men and women are having a hard time communicating and having a hard time getting along and understanding one another. Then they push this agenda, which makes women feel closer to women and men feel closer to men, at the same time pushing the agenda of transhumanism and trans in order to cause us to be more open, or not as fighting against it, not fighting for the bond of man and woman anymore. And we should be fighting for the bond and how we fit, like this is different than this. These fill in different spaces, but right now, because of fear and trauma, that's what's causing pain and sorrow. So we want to run from that. And then what is that? Transhumanism, trans behavior, not wanting to be who you are, and then just saying anything goes because this is not connecting correctly. It's going like this. And that's why they're taking advantage of that, because they know in fear and in stress, women will react this way, men will react this way, and there'll automatically be a clash.
Yeah.
And they're taking full advantage of it.
Transhumans. Well, Tara, we haven't heard from you for a while, so let's hear from you.
Well, one interesting thing is that me and Dave went to this museum that I've heard about for a couple years. It's only 4 years old. I didn't realize it's the Heritage Museum, American Heritage Museum, and it's really just on somebody's property, and it's the Collins Foundation, which Dave was looking up last night, and Dave got to ride in a tank, a World War II tank, a Jackson something. I have the information inside, so I got that footage. And it really was, it was interesting in a lot of ways, and I have tons of good footage. They also have, they have this whole military display with like all the different wars and like some of the artillery and all this stuff. And in a different section, they have cars, like old cars throughout the century, similar to the Ford Museum. And it was just so interesting. And it's weird because, first of all, not being a direct person of like a military family, I thought it reminded me that there's a really strong bond between military families, and just they understand things on a level that like the average person doesn't even consider, really, and we're just getting a little glimpse of that. So it was cool because we got to talk to some pilots inside and whatnot. And we walked across the field, and it was cool because we didn't realize that an eagle had lived right there, his nest. And yeah, thank you. And So we ended up getting 2 feathers. And then this like older woman was like, oh, yelled over to us about not the eagle feathers. But anyways, so we walked up and we found out afterwards that she was Carolyn Collins, who's like 83 or 85 or something. Her and her husband, Bob Collins, opened this up. And so, and then people were like commenting on the eagle feather, which is like apparently illegal or whatever. Fine, you get a fine. But you know, we picked up off the ground. We didn't do anything to any eagle. And then we actually saw the eagle up in the nest, the baby, and we got footage because he was flapping around and couldn't fly out. So I wanted to go back into the military stuff because there was something else I wanted to see. It was just very interesting. So here's why I'm stuttering a little bit, is because altogether, I would say this is a great place. I would love to bring everybody. It's totally awesome. The thing that keeps my mind red flag fluttering is I just felt like it was like a little too, okay, not as a whole. Sorry, I'm taking a slow time on this. Not as a whole, but there was this room upstairs where if you went in, it was like a little too honorful of Hitler, sorry to say. Like he was just displayed like his thing, and just it was an honor room, like, you know what I mean? Somebody, whatever. And then it was right from there. And this room actually could be closed and locked off from the rest of the museum if possible, because it was in a different section. But right through there was the whole museum did not have this vibe. Okay. So then you go into like these pits where it was like pretend not reenacted, but like the little prisoner areas, like the what do they call them, the foxholes, and like just like the total battle zone of like badness. So you go through. So I got the one eagle feather right here, and so whatever, Dave calls me, and then he goes, oh, like he already went through. And so then basically that guy had said to him, something about the eagle feather. Oh, whatever. I should take that eagle feather, something. So I was like, that's weird that the only like disgruntled person was in like the Hitler, like whatever area. And anyway, so that's, so I have an open jury in my mind about what exactly, like Dave started looking into the College Foundation. They have something in every state. They just got this military stuff. She was a fashion designer, because we talked to some people. She was a fashion designer in New York City. So next to the old cars, she has like old like fancy dresses. Like I got all the footage. But anyways, I know that like probably there's things about Hitler that we don't know, but we know it's not good. Let's put it that way. And just even down on the battlefield, when we went over to the little thing, they had like a little music, a little like old record player and different stuff. And I just noticed like kind of some Nazi memorabilia, whatever. It's not the only thing they had. It just stays in my mind. That's where my mind's at anyway.
Well,
So
Tara,
that's my long-winded.
No, well, Tara, here's the thing. So my husband, and what's really weird, a lot of my family, tons, had been in the military. I wasn't anti-military, but anti-war, because I heard stories growing up. My great grandmother had 9 boys and 3 girls. Every one of them served in the military except for one, because she was the oldest daughter who helped take care of everyone. And so they all went into the Air Force, Army, Marines, and Navy. They all chose one. And the stories that I heard, plus on my dad's side, everyone was military, right? And I didn't like the stories I heard because they don't treat vets well. And they're not really healing them when they come back after they've fought for our freedom. And so the sad part was hearing those things and wanting to be anti-war, but supportive of those who are trying to protect us. And then I married a Marine. And there is, when you go into these museums, so about 2 years into our marriage, we went to the Carter Center, and they had, it was called the War Memorial. And you went through every war, all the pictures, all the things. I got to the Civil War, and I'm not kidding, my body collapsed and I started bawling. The security of the Carter Center had to come up and ask if everything was okay. My husband was embarrassed. He's like, here, it's okay. And I said, no. They're still screaming. They were brothers. What did we do? And I lost it. And the reason why you're feeling that is because there are good things and bad when it comes to war. There are people who are saved, but there's slaughter. And I know why your mind is doing that, because every time I see a war, it reminds me of all our soldiers who were there to help us and love us and fight for us. And the people who made those decisions, it wasn't like old time where they were in the front line. They sat behind desks and then they told us a bunch of hooey, right? And so, yeah, you should feel that way. We should all feel that way. And we should want to protect our soldiers like they do us. You know, they are battle ready, but then they are battle beaten. And when people spit on them or treat them bad, when all they wanted to do is protect us, and then we want the right to have porn, we want the right to have trans rights, we want the right to mutilate children, we want the right to run around like spoiled brats, not even grow our own garden, demand lemons from 3,000 miles away. We have major issues. We are not appreciating all the death. And I have a particular feeling that really no one in the world is appreciating those who went through torture because a few people said, this is what we have to do. And everyone became spoiled. And yeah, you should be feeling that pain.
And detached.
Yeah. I mean,
And
my husband had to
Amber.
carry me out of the Carter Center because I thought about the pictures of the Civil War. Like they had all the pictures of soldiers, like it was hundreds of pictures, and I collapsed. It was the most awful
The
thing I've ever
Civil War divided us. It divided our country. And I think we're feeling that now. It's a horrible thing to feel.
Yeah. So I think it was great that you felt that. And I think it was great that you noticed that in one of the areas where the most atrocities happen in a war and slaughter millions of people, that's when someone's worried about an eagle feather. That speaks volumes. And the fact that you noticed that you can still appreciate our military, you can still appreciate the people who fought for us, but you don't have to appreciate some dark spirit trying to make you feel guilty for appreciating a bird. That spirit can screw off. You don't have to have a guilty conscience for that. That thing was just trying to make you have a bad time.
Well,
it
is illegal, though. They did make it illegal to have eagle feathers. And there might be something if you're Native American and it's for regalia, it's okay. But I don't know. I think part of that was to divide us from that feeling of the nobility of the eagle and what it represents, both in the original states before, people came from Europe and after,
They're worried about the eagle feather that fell off the bird without anybody touching it, but they're not worried about sticking mRNA in children and having them get myocarditis. Let's get our priorities together. These people are a fucking joke. If you're going to hold a bird sacred, but not the very humans that pay you taxes, screw you.
Well, that's part of the One Health thing too, where the animals have more rights. Or we're all birds of prey.
Yeah, PETA on steroids.
Animals of burden.
PETA on steroids. I don't care if these kids die, but don't hurt that raccoon or that squirrel. I mean, PETA on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the things that it also speaks to is the same reason that we wound up with Operation Paperclip, because the excuse was, oh, this technology, we can't be behind, we can't let some other country or entity get this technology, so we need to bring them all here because they might be just housing demons, but they know things, they're very smart people, and we need to whatever, and we're dealing with the students of that, the bloodlines of that, and the whole shebang now.
But we need that in order to heal as a nation. And right now I'm speaking mostly to citizens of the U.S. To heal as a nation, we need to consider the possibility that George was right 4 years ago, that the entire Cold War was a gigantic school play. Because how did Lenin get so much power in so little time? It was the same characters in the city of London that were giving him all the money, plus two other communist or pro-socialist groups and two fascist groups. So of the five, Lenin got the most recruits, but he had to pay it back in some way. And that payback was the creation of two mirrored ideologies that led to the Vietnam War and everything else.
And slaughtered millions and slaughtered millions and millions. And I'll tell you, so we can end on a good note. I sent John a video, and it's called Children Are Amazing. So I know they're after the children, they're after the next generation, but look at the possibilities. This one is about the age of your grandson, Carol. You'll see how fantastic.
I'm gonna have to go because I have a meeting that starts exactly at 11 right now, and so
you'll have to rewind
I'll watch
it and
it
see
later.
Yes,
Okay.
because you're going
Bye,
to love
Carol.
it. Bye,
Love
Carol.
you.
Bye, Carol.
So play this because the potential we have with a generation that we may not even have, that's not even born. Look at how amazing children are, because we're going to be able to make them strong and to make things much better. So I wanted to end on this note. Need the volume. Could you expand it?
Almost.
John, you're gonna have
A little
to. John,
choppy. Choppy.
John.
Yes.
John, you were able to see it. John, you were able to see it. We couldn't see it. So it played on yours. It didn't on ours. Take our face off.
No, I could see it, but it was choppy sound.
So take us off and then expand the video and make sure you start it from the beginning.
Gotcha. Okay, share sound. Here we go. I'll put the link in the description below.
That was
I might have already done so.
Yes, literally directed.
That was very, very
literally
cool.
directed the whole thing and was way into it. It was beautiful.
All right.
All right. Well, have a great day.
At 4 o'clock, I'm going to have a short 10-minute video describing, expanding upon something that both Amber and Tara said a little bit ago, and describing how we should proceed as research roasters. So tune in at 4 o'clock for that short video.
Okay. Awesome. Have a good weekend.
Have a good
Love you guys.
weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Eek, eek.
Eek.